and welcome to the Goldenrod Podcast. I'm Ben. As always, I'm joined by fellow Pokemon enthusiast Conor to bring you some of the latest and greatest Pokemon news and a few laughs along the way. This week, we're discussing layoffs at a company partnered with Niantic and whether it has anything to do with the poorly received Avatar update. Also, we're discussing 10 features from Pokemon Legends Arceus we want to see return. As always, you can jump to a topic using the timestamps in the description below. Conor, I can see you looking at me because of what I said about Niantic. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, that's correct. That's why I'm looking at you that way. It's because the answer is no. No, it's got nothing to do with the avatars. It's nothing.
She would jump straight in. She would just jump straight into it then at this point. Let's do it. So, an independent game studio called Very Very Spaceship, a long-running game development partner employed by Niantic to work on various aspects of the game, including the recent Avatar update, which has been poorly received, have laid off several members of the team. I think quite nicely. Conor, I'm just going to hand over to you at this point.
So we know about this. We have a bunch of their team members who have turned to LinkedIn and said, yep, I worked here for 4 years, many years, and have suddenly been let go seemingly out of the blue. It doesn't look like any of these had any inkling that this might be coming. So it's very sudden layoffs. Now, having worked for companies before, sudden layoffs usually means we're not making as much money as we thought we were. Time to cut corners. Time to trim the fat, as they say. I don't think this could possibly be a response to the avatars. Now, yes, VVS or Very Very Spaceship were the team in charge of creating the avatars. Yes, they have been responded to poorly by the community. That I don't imagine them not getting paid for their work, though.
Because the way it would work, I'd imagine, is Niantic go out to Very Very Spaceship, as they have done with other things. I don't know what those things are, and said, oh, we would like you to create this feature, whatever it might be. In this case, it's the Avatar system. Very Very Spaceship don't do that in a little silo and then push it live. There will be checkpoints, there will be check-ins where Niantic goes, okay, right, how's it coming along? Fantastic. Oh, we don't like that. Tweak changes. It's Niantic's game. They will get the ultimate sign-off of, yes, push this to live.
Yeah.
The fact that
at no point did Very Spaceship just go, oh, we've built that thing and we've released it to the public. Oh, the public don't like it, so we're not paying you for it. That's just not how it works, guys.
No, exactly. But I'd imagine 99.9% of people who are unhappy with the Avatar system, their frustrations are pointed at Niantic because they aren't aware of any other studios that are supporting them, helping them. And I just don't see how Niantic could then turn around and go, yeah, you need to get rid of these people, or Very Very Spaceship going, oh, we need to get rid of these people. Because like you said, the way work works is once the work's done, you invoice, you get paid for the work. So they'll have had the money for the work they've done. So whatever reason for getting rid of them doesn't feel like it has anything to do with the Avatar system.
No, in more likely case is that A, we are heading towards a economic recession, if not a crash.
Woo!
I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news if you didn't know that one. Things aren't looking great. Companies everywhere are starting to trim what they can where they can. And another thing you've got to look at as well is it's a game development company. They're art designers, people coming up with avatar designs and character creation. These are the sort of people that are now being laid off for the sake of AI. Because companies, and the heads of companies at least, shareholders are looking at it going, well, I can get a machine to do their job for free. Why am I paying someone? And that machine may not actually be able to do the job that person did. But that is the approach that a lot of companies are taking, especially tech companies. I know people within the development field who have lost their jobs recently due to exactly this reason. People going, well, I can just get AI to do it for you. Or I can get one person to utilize AI to do the job of what used to take 5 people. So that's more likely what these layoffs are about. However, that being said, if Niantic are going to fix the avatars and the whole system in place, who's going to do that now?
That's a valid point. Yeah, who is going to do that now? I think there's two questions there, and the first one is, do Niantic care? And the second question, therefore, is, are they going to do anything about it? I honestly think it's a no. And I think the reason why is because the avatars, I don't think, would have made them a lot of money. There will be people that will buy some of the costumes and stuff, but for the most part, I don't think that's where they get most of the money. And therefore, why spend more time and money on changing something that probably doesn't impact their bottom line that much?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
Yeah, and let's not forget as well, we say the community reacted poorly. We are the vocal minority, guys. If you're listening to the podcast, you are part of this minority that cares too much, probably. And the vast majority of people who play Pokemon go, just don't care. It's like, oh, my avatar updated. Oh, I don't like it as much as I used to, and then got on with their lives.
I think some people will actually enjoy this because I don't know if it's just my friends list on Pokemon Go, but there's quite a few that I think actually go for the ugliest avatars they can before the update. It was like, right, okay, what are the things that do not match and I can make my character look absolutely disturbing and horrible? And this probably just helps them. And, you know, while all I wanted was new hairstyles for my avatar, to be quite honest with you, and the ability to change ever so slightly a couple of styles, and that's not what I got. For the most part, I'm just used to seeing it now. I'm at the point where I'm like, well, whatever, I don't care. And a lot of the clothing options my character wears in Pokemon Go just kind of disguises some of the issues with it. And to be quite honest with you, I've never spent money on the clothing side of things. Yes, I bought the occasional thing, but I've used the in-game currency, which I've earned through the gym system. So I'm really not that fussed, but I can understand why other people are frustrated because it does feel like a step backwards.
Is what it is. No need to stress. That's my approach to it at this point. I've stopped trying to worry so much about silly little things now. I'm getting better. I'm trying my absolute best to get better at it.
Good. And I think that's a good point, actually, is just if there's things outside of your control, why worry about them? Try to worry a little bit less. Try to just be, relaxed about it. That's not saying you shouldn't care about things, but let's be honest with you, how much change can you have over a company? But the answer actually there is yes, you can make a difference, but it's quite hard to do. Have you heard about Helldivers 2 and what happened with that?
Oh, haven't they, because I don't play Helldivers, unfortunately, but I did come across an article that said all PC gamers will now have to have a PlayStation Network account.
So the way it works, my understanding is that, because I own Helldivers 2 on Steam, but I've barely played it. And Helldivers 2, there is a link somewhere with PlayStation, and I think what it is that Sony is the publisher. I think I might be wrong there. I haven't looked into this. I'm doing this off the top of my head. But anyway, what basically happened is Sony came down and said, oh no, if you want to play Helldivers 2 on Steam, you need to also have a PSN account. So then it got to the point where for the first, I think, 6 months after release, the people who made Helldivers turned that feature off, knowing that they would have to implement it at some point. But they made the decision of, if we implement it at the start, it could put people off buying it, therefore we'll do it at a later stage. It got to the point where Sony stepped in and said, now's the time to implement this. Some of the developers were quite boisterous about, we don't want this. All you can do at this point is vote with your wallet and also negatively review us on Steam, because obviously then it goes from very positive to it starts to jump down and then it impacts on sales. What has happened after, I think, about 48 hours, Sony's come out and said, okay, we're going to reverse this decision. You don't need a PSN account. Absolutely fine. And I think Sony were getting some pressure from Steam because Steam suddenly got hit with a load of people wanting
refunds. Because
refunds.
That's deceptive marketing. If you've turned... I was kind of with it until you said, oh yeah, this was always supposed to be a feature, but we turned it off at the beginning because it was going to put people off. Yeah, it would have done. And they'd have been well within their right to be put off your game. You don't get to throw this on them 6 months down the line. But it's fine. And this story has a happy ending. There's so many cases where it wouldn't have done.
It doesn't. Yeah. Where it's just like the developer basically turns around and says, it's our game, suck it up. Either you take it or you leave it. And there's no middle ground.
Yeah, you've played for more than 24 hours. Or sorry, what is it on Steam? You got to play for 2 hours.
2 hours. But the annoying thing with this one, because I already have a PlayStation Network account because I've owned multiple PlayStations. So for me, it wasn't a big deal. But for other people, it would have been. And I think what annoyed a lot of the community was they had to delist the game from several regions because they couldn't get the PlayStation Network there. And I think that was the thing that shot them in the foot, because all of a sudden they had people wanting the refunds, and rightly so, because suddenly they've paid 30, 40 odd quid for a game that they cannot play.
Yeah.
And then in that case, rightly so. It doesn't matter if they've played 2 hours or 1,000 hours. At that point, you should have to refund them. And this comes back to the whole, well, technically you're not buying the game, you are
buying a license to play it for as long as they allow you to.
Very, very messy. But the good news story, like you mentioned, is the fact that something good did come out of this. And it can happen. But unfortunately, sometimes it feels like you are fighting an uphill battle, which is a shame.
What was the relevance of this?
We were talking about... it's because we were talking about... just being a lot more calmer, and you can't impact certain decisions.
Right, I see. Okay, no, there was a tangential link there. I just missed it.
There was a thread going through. You can't impact things and make changes for the better, but you need to do it as a community. And unfortunately for Pokemon, to bring this full circle, like you say, it's the vocal minority. It's a little community that while they could vote with their wallet, it's 1% of the total player install base. Like, it's not going to move that dial, unfortunately. Let's talk about something, though, that I think... Talking about gaming and improvements and making things better, let's talk about 10 features from Pokemon Legends Arceus that we want to see return in the upcoming Pokemon Legends Center A, but also how we would improve them. Now, we have a list here. I've suddenly realized I kind of threw together this list, pinged it across to you, but then we didn't decide what order we wanted to do them in. So
top to bottom.
Do you want top to bottom? We're just going for it. Right, we're going with massive outbreaks to start with then. Now, I think what would be quite good is if we just talk briefly about how these were implemented in the previous game. Yeah? So, in Legends
what the
Arceus.
mechanic is, basically.
Yes. To break it down. And then we can talk about the improvement. Okay, fantastic. So Massive Outbreaks were something released with the Daybreak DLC. There was a free...
No, I'm fairly certain that Massive Outbreaks was always part of it. Mass Outbreaks were always a part of it. Massive Mass Outbreaks were added.
That's it.
And I can never remember the difference.
I think the Massive Outbreaks, from what I remember, is you go back to a map and there's like 3 or 4 areas where it's like, oh, look at all these new Pokemon there, and you can see what they are. Massive Mass Outbreaks were where there were like dozens of them, but they all had question marks, and you had to feed Munchlax a berry in order to show what those Pokemon were.
Yes.
I think. I can see you furiously searching this up right now.
Let's have a look. So, as of Cerebi, Mass Outbreaks have made a return. Oh, no, that's not helpful.
Is that about Scarlet and Violet?
Every day you will get a new mass outbreak, and you clear them out by defeating or capturing the Pokemon. The Pokemon you get are random, but you have a small chance of Pokemon from the current area you're in being in mass outbreaks every time the game shifts the outbreaks. So, yeah, it was basically a way of going, hey, here's a bunch of Pokemon all clustered together. They may be rare, they may be not. The point is, there's lots of them there, which worked really well in Arceus, where catching lots of Pokemon of the same kind was very useful. I'm just going to look this up now.
What about
You will
Scarlet and Violet?
Okay, so mass outbreaks. When you go there, you will see 4 of the same species of Pokemon congregated in an area. But as you defeat them, more will appear until you have defeated or caught all the Pokemon. Each mass outbreak will generate between 10 to 15 Pokemon and their stats and shininess are determined when you load the area. So where is the massive mass outbreaks? Because I want to know the difference. Because it always confused me.
Okay. I think it is what I said, but let's just double check. Just be sure so we don't go off a complete tangent.
Yep, so it was the Daybreak download. These massive mass outbreaks will cause massive spawns of various Pokemon across the entire area. But unlike the mass outbreaks, these are time limited, and when the storm ends, the outbreaks go as well. When you enter the area, you have no idea what Pokemon is available as an outbreak. The massive mass outbreaks last 7 minutes, 75% of the time, blah, blah, blah. Each mass outbreak has between 8 and 10 Pokemon and a slim chance of a second wave coming through. These waves include evolved versions of the Pokemon or alpha variants. Okay.
Oh, I didn't know alpha variants were included in that.
Yeah, that was the cool thing about mass outbreaks is you'd go and you'd have a chance to find an alpha Pichu all of a sudden, which you never ever get anywhere else.
Yeah. Oh, I like that. Those people that enjoy challenges and collectibles, I can just imagine someone out there is gone, I'm going to get an alpha of every single Pokemon.
A shiny alpha of every single Pokemon.
Shiny alpha, could you imagine? Oh, that'd be... Which is why it's impossible to complete a living... Not impossible, but next to it, improbable that you can complete a living shiny Pokedex, whatever, because there's just so many variations of all these Pokemon now. Anyway, massive outbreaks. Let's just break down. Did you enjoy these in Legends Arceus?
I did. I thought they were fun. If we're talking about mass outbreaks, like we're not separating the two out here. We're not including the mini game that it's a mystery and you feed Munchlax and all that kind of stuff. Just mass outbreaks. Yes, I thought they were a lot of fun. I thought because you would start as a question mark unless you'd caught the Pokemon, I think. Unless it was in your Pokedex.
That sounds right. Yeah.
And then it would show up on the map what it was. It was a very good way to, as I say, go and get maybe a Pokemon you hadn't caught yet. Maybe a bunch of Pokemon you were trying to fill out your decks for to get to that 10-star rating. Or, as I say, it was a chance to catch an alpha of a really random Pokemon that doesn't usually show up on the map. It wasn't game-changing by any aspect, by any means, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'm actually going to throw out here as well, because similar to the mass outbreaks that we haven't got in our list is the time-space distortions.
Oh, yes.
Which was a similar kind of deal. You didn't get to see it on the map, which was the other thing as well. When you were at your hub and you used to go, all right, where do I want to go explore today? Oh, there's a mass outbreak of Shinx over there. I need to fill out Shinx, so I guess I'll go do that. You didn't get to see the time distortions on the map, and loading in time distortions was a pain because the best way to get one reliably was to stand still for 15 minutes.
Yeah, do nothing. Yes.
Ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. But was a very cool addition. I liked the way things popped in from the future, not only items, but also Pokemon specifically from the future. Is the only way you could get things like Porygon and Scizor and a bunch of things that evolved through Metal Coat, which was very, very cool. And I'd love to see some element of that again. I don't know if this Legends is going to have any kind of time travel elements to it, but I'd like something like the time-space distortions to come back. Just heading into the eye of a storm always felt really good as well.
It did. It felt like... So both of these added something to the post-game, in my opinion, of the massive outbreaks, whatever you want to call them. It was that replayability of, okay, I now need to... If I want to get the best Pokedex completion, it offers me that opportunity to quickly bash that out because suddenly I've got all these Pokemon together that I can go and catch. I can battle them. I can see them do the different moves or feed them berries or hit them with mud balls. Whatever you needed to do to complete that Pokedex. And for me, as someone that does want to complete shiny living decks, it was a great opportunity to just, you'd fly in, you'd drop down, and then as soon as you land, smoke bomb. It's like, right, okay, start catching all these Pokemon with the odds of, getting a shiny increasing. Really enjoyed that. The distortion zones, what that added for me was all that I've just said, but also a difficulty spike. I always struggled in the distortion zones because it always felt like the Pokemon, the amount of time they would attack was higher. So whenever you landed in, it just felt...
I always took it as they were more aggressive because they're like, where am I? What's happening? I don't want to be here. Who are you? Get out of my way.
Yeah. And what I loved about that is it just took that difficulty spike from the noble Pokemon, where noble Pokemon, it was a one-on-one. And this, sometimes you were trying to dodge 3 or 4 Pokemon's attacks at once while you were trying to mud bomb them to shut them down, to then throw a poke. It was phenomenal. It was great post-game content. And like you said, I just loved the fact that that you were seeing things that were obviously pulled out of time. And it worked really well in that game because it just threw you whenever you were like, oh, there's a Porygon Z, which just should not exist in this time. And it just made it, suddenly I was excited to see these Pokemon that normally I wouldn't really care about because I'm annoyed with like the convoluted methods of evolving, like a Porygon, for example.
I've still never evolved anything with a metal coat.
Have you not?
Nah.
No, can't blame you. Can't blame you. Although that was a good thing. You know what? That's something else that isn't on the list. Legends Arceus and the way you could evolve trade Pokemon. They just flat out removed that.
So
linking
good.
Cables. Like, that's not on this list.
Well, if you traded, it worked anyway.
Yeah. Like, best of both worlds. Anyway, so this first one, this mass outbreak in the time distortion zones, we're both in agreement that we want them to come back from Legends Z to A. And while I can't, unless, like say, there is a time travel element, I'm struggling to see how they could do that. But I just don't think it even needs don't even give it an explanation.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that might sound daft because, like, in Legends Arceus, we had, there is some time travel shenanigans going on. We know we're in the Legends timeline. We know that, therefore, it isn't in the modern day. Therefore, you don't really need to explain why time distortion's happening. Just let them happen naturally in the post game. Okay. I'd be okay with that. I actually would be okay with that. Of just, and it just needs a line of dialogue from the professor of the region, just going, some weird stuff going on out there. We think it has something to do with, reality warping. That's all it needs. We live in a world of fantastical monsters.
Yeah,
it doesn't need more of an explanation.
We've had space-time distortions. We've had ultra wormholes. We've had fallers from all different regions that have never been explained.
Yep.
Yeah. Space-time distortions can show up anywhere, or at least some form of portal from a future time.
Exactly.
How would you want to improve these?
I was going to ask you the exact
I'll start then.
Question. If you've got an answer, go for it.
So I think you wouldn't be able to do this till post-game. I think it should be kind of standard all the way through. And then in post-game, you get the ability to set them up. So you can basically farm outbreaks. So instead of them just being constantly random, you can go, well, actually, I want an outbreak of Cherubi. So what I've got to go do is get Cherubi's. I got to have Cherubi in my Pokedex first, so I've got to catch it first, and then I find out what its favorite food is, and then I go out and get a bunch of items to build the food, and then I can set up an outbreak to go. Okay, if I leave this here, there will be an outbreak within sort of 5 minutes.
Okay, that seems like the perfect way to do that because it's, again, rewarding that player inquisitiveness of, okay, I need to find out a bit more about this Pokemon, to therefore rewarding that player for finding out more about the Pokemon. And what I like about that idea, Connor, is the fact that it plays quite nicely into, that's how it would work in real life. If you wanted to attract something, you'd figure out, okay, what kind of bait do we need? Throw a load of bait down, the animals will be attracted to that bait. It just makes perfect lore sense and helps to implement a game mechanic which feels grounded in realism, which I know sounds daft when we're talking about pocket monsters and all the shenanigans that goes on. But it works in this case.
And you're already utilizing the mechanics that were built into the game and playing into that gameplay loop of going, collecting, building, catching.
Yeah. I think one thing that I think I would like from a lore perspective, but maybe not from a gameplay perspective, but I'll take your thoughts on this. If, for example, Cherubi, and we're pointing something down that attracts the Cherubi, surely there should be an outbreak nearby of the predator of Cherubi, because if a load of Cherubi appear, then surely there are, flying type Pokemon, bird Pokemon, whatever they are, that would go, well, we're going to migrate alongside them because then we can hunt them.
Okay, so counterpoint, not necessarily a second outbreak, but so when you did like chain fishing and things like that back in Sun and Moon, it used to be you could chain fish up Corsola and you'd have a chance of it would have a chance of calling in a Marini as backup because Marini eat Corsola. So I think it would be a case of like, okay, you have a Cherubi outbreak, but Starly eat Cherubi. So within that outbreak, you have a chance for Starly to appear within it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And fight each other. That's the big one. We want that. Give us Pokemon fighting each other in the wild. Please, Pokemon.
Yes, please. And it shouldn't be difficult to implement. Like, shouldn't be. Yeah, I think we've nailed outbreaks, time distortion, and getting them to work. And I think we're both agreed that was probably one of the best features in Legends Arceus brought along a load of good features, but there were some in there that were fantastic that I want to see implemented more.
Yep, agreed. I think the next one on our list is probably the one I want to see the most return, weirdly enough.
I actually agree with you here. So, balloon racing and the Coronet Highlands, but it was also available in other areas.
It was available in all the areas.
Yeah.
It just got harder and harder.
That was it. And you would have to... What I liked about this is... Okay, let's take a step back just to explain people in case they don't know what it is. It's literally you have a start point and an end point, and there are various items along there. In this case, the screenshot I'm looking at is a load of Drifloon balloons, and you would have to race from the start to the end of popping these balloons as you go along. I can't quite remember if popping the balloons added to your time. I think it did. But there have been variations. No, I can't either. But there's been variations on this because we got something similar in Scarlet and Violet. In the similar, not like this, and this built on the bike racing version in Sword and Shield as well. So it improved on that because instead of it just being a bike, this allowed you to navigate walls and flying with the different mount Pokemon.
Yeah, and it kind of made it so that you had to master each of the mounts and how to traverse between the two of them. So you go from a Stantler, run off the edge, jump. Okay, now hit the bird. Now we're in the sky. Okay, now we need to drop off that into the water. Okay, that immediately puts us on our Basculegion. Now we're zooming. Okay, jump here, back into the Braviary. Fly into the wall, into the Sneasler, up, onto Stantler. A very, very cool bit of... Like,
it was.
Just again, and it's one of those where it's just allowing you to build on the mechanics I already use. This traversal is part of the game. It's one of the core parts of that gameplay loop that we keep talking about. And it just allowed you to go, yeah, I've mastered this. And it was simple. You were basically just running along a path. It was a time trial, really. But I think compared to the mini games we got in Scarlet and Violet, because you had the balloon popping one, didn't you?
You did.
But you were in kind of one area and you just had to ride around in circles. And then you had the berry gathering game, which was very frustrating if anybody tried to get it on the highest levels.
So I know you get shiny Munchlax for completing that. I don't think I will ever get that shiny Munchlax because it's impossible to do solo.
Yeah, you have to play with 4 players.
Yeah. To have a chance, by the way, my understanding is it was still quite difficult even on the highest.
Yep.
Even with 4 players on the highest difficulty. I think with this, I agree. Like, as simple as this thing is, it was really rewarding as you jump between the different mounts at the various points of the race. Really enjoyed that. I think that the way you build this into Legends ZA and improve it is that have this available at the start of the game, but then as the city builds up, if that is what we're doing, then obviously the difficulty would increase, because suddenly it is a case of, okay, well, there's a lot of Greenland, therefore it is mainly just, doing a loop or something like that. But then as the buildings build up, you not only have that horizontal side, but you have the vertical side as well, which rewards the different Pokemon that have to climb skyscrapers. And what I love about this is that, give us something a little bit different. So you could have one that is a race, but is literally, oh no, you're jumping off the top of the Eiffel Tower looking thing, whatever it's called, and all you've got to do is just go down and hit the balloons as you fall down.
Yeah,
like
I can see
you could have one that's doing the river throughout the area. So I'm trying to think how would you build on it, and the way you build on it is, whereas in Legends Arceus it wasn't really exploring locations. That's how you do it in Legends ZA. Of the races allow you to go past well-known monuments in the city and lets you explore and learn more about the city as you do it.
Okay, I like that. Here's how I'd improve on it: player-generated content.
Oh, okay.
Let players create their own courses and upload them so other people can come and play them.
Love that. Absolutely love that.
Have people allowed to come in and race each other in the same course. If we have now this kind of interconnectivity that we had from Scarlet and Violet, which I still don't think was perfect. I don't think they nailed it. But being able to see someone in my own world, and they definitely within the mini games, the multiplayer was better. Mm-hmm. I'd like to see a case of like, here's a course I designed, bring everybody into my world, and we're going to see everybody run it. Or you've uploaded it and somebody can go, oh, my friends put this up, I'm going to download that. Or there could just be a list of courses that you can download. So if they don't do the Lumiose Tower Fall, somebody can create the Lumiose Tower Fall and you just download the track and run it.
I love that. And the way, obviously, that you implement this is using Mario Maker logic of, before you upload it, you need to complete this course. Therefore, the course is completable. It might not be easy, but it's achievable. And that gets around that issue of people uploading courses that will never be complete. I love that. It does something that I have wanted from Pokemon for the longest time of, there should be multiplayer fun outside of the battling and trading. That worked for Pokemon in the past. It needs to move on with the times. And the fact that we see more and more user-generated content in the likes of Fortnite, Roblox, there's loads of examples, like Gary's Mod, for example. Give
GTA 5 is still alive.
There you go. Like, if you want players to continue returning to this game, this franchise for, the year, or, this would also enable you to maybe go, oh, we can actually, maybe instead of a yearly development cycle, we can push it out a little bit more because we've got our own players creating content for other players for free. Mm-hmm. Like, it's a phenomenal idea. I love it, Conor. And I'd love to see this.
Cool.
Should we move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
Strong and agile style. So, for those that didn't play Legends Arceus or need a refresher, moves now allow you to... Every move that you have has 3 variants. So it has the normal version that you have in every single Pokemon game. You've then got Agile Style, which allows you to hit for less damage, but sometimes it will move you up in the pecking order of moves. So, turn 1, turn 2, turn 3, turn 4, it could potentially push you up, and therefore you get to have 2 back-to-back moves. You've also got Strong Style, which is the opposite of this, of your Pokemon hits harder, but typically your Pokemon will get moved down the pecking order, which allows the opponent to therefore get 2 attacks in.
I think we have to roll this in with that new order of like live updating who goes first, who goes next, and being able to see that and being able to see how your moves would affect that on the fly, especially when you're fighting multiple Pokemon at once.
Yes.
It was very, very cool addition. And I don't think it changed up the battling too much, but added just a little bit of spice for people who have done this for long enough now that they go, okay, so I use this move because it's my strongest move and it'll do the most damage, except from this time because it's super effective. So I click that one. Oh, you did a move against me. I do a move against you. You do. Not the Pokemon is boring. There's obviously more to it than that. But this just added another layer to think about. And that wasn't, as I say, it wasn't too confusing. It didn't throw the baby out with the bathwater. But it was just a little something new.
Yeah. Agreed. And what I think I would like to see this not only in Legends Z to A, I would like to see this in the mainline Pokemon games personally. I love that because when I said strong and agile style, I completely forgot about the turn order mechanic that had changed as part of this. It completely forgot about it. And I think back to Final Fantasy X. That's the game that I think implemented this perfectly of, your moves have different priorities and it can move you up and down. What I loved about that is typically there could be anywhere between 4 and 6 different players or creatures, monsters, whatever you want to call them, in that order. I would love to see the strong and agile style playing out in double battles competitively. Of, okay, right, I'm going to use this priority move, which puts mine ahead of everyone else. But then the other player could also do a priority move. So it's constantly shifting and changing. And it just opens up more variety in battling of, okay, what could you do to implement this even further? So, for example, Protect. Maybe there's a version of that where Protect is your typical normal thing. And, you've got strong and agile versions of status moves, for example. So it could be, okay, you're going to go for Spore, for example. Well, you could have it where you've got a agile version of Spore, which goes faster, but it drops the percentage chance to 90%, for example. So it's you boost the priority, but there's a detriment to doing that. And you could flip it. So maybe if you do strong style, it would put both your opponents to sleep, but then there's only a 50% chance of that happening. I would love to see how we could implement this more for more moves, which would allow competitiveness to kind of change up. So it isn't just all the same usual moves that you are seeing. It would allow players to think up new creative ways to use moves that maybe haven't been as widely used because there's no use or functionality for them.
So I love the idea. I love working and having this in some form of competitive battling. I don't think we bring it over to the main line. I don't think this is going to be in Gen 10. However, I would love to see some form of competitive battling brought to Legends Z2A. I would love to see some interplayer battling available. Because you're right, it's a really, really cool system. And the main reason I don't think they bring it over is because they had to change up how a bunch of status effects worked to make the whole new system function properly. So you don't just go to sleep now, you're drowsy, which means you're slower and you have a chance to not do an attack on your turn. Things like frostbite and stuff like that was very, very cool, very different. I'd love to see it. I would love to see this. This doesn't even really need to change as far as I'm concerned. I think they nailed agile and strong style. I think we just need to see actual interplayer battling within the next Legends Z2A.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily need battling throughout the game because I don't think that's what the game was about and what it was trying to get across. I think the battles that we had in Legends Arceus were some of the most fun.
Agreed.
Because they were more sparse, and because they just threw 3-4 Pokemon at you at once. It was like, what? There's no rules.
I love that.
What is this?
Yeah, yeah. Well, there wouldn't be any rules. It made sense in that context of, well, there is no league. Why? I've got 3. Why would I not be allowed to use 3 Pokemon at once? Or what I loved was the wild battles of you'd okay, right, I've snuck up on this Pokemon, throw a Pokemon. And then the wild Zubat would just be like, oh, what's rocking up here? I want to get in on this. I loved it.
So, yeah. I'd love to see a way to battle other trainers, other players, and B, I want to see double battles. I want to be able to throw 2 of my Pokemon out. And
agreed.
Yeah, and especially if you're talking about, could the Pokemon attack each other in battle?
If they could, I'd never seen it before.
Seen it. Okay. That
Are you thinking more of like a triple battle of, well, I'm attacking this Pokemon, but Zubat sensed, I could attack my prey here.
Yeah, something has come in and joined the battle, and it'll fight that Pokemon until it turns around and fights you. It'd make catching really annoying, but I think it would add to a lot to the game.
I'd enjoy that a lot, actually. I'm thinking back to, they kind of implemented that in the fire gym in Sword and Shield.
Yes.
Do you remember where you had to, like, it was you and someone else fighting this one Pokemon? It made it a nightmare because you're trying to catch it and the other opponent was just like, I'll just knock it out, I guess. Like, what? No, hold on. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. But yes, that kind of, it just, I think the core of this point is, what are some ways we can open up the battling mechanics of the game that have felt very samey for a long time? And this is how you do it. Strong and agile style, and I personally would like to see strong and agile style do something to status effects.
I think it does. I think what you said about it reducing
I can't remember
the accuracy.
Okay.
Or the efficacy, really.
Okay. I don't remember that. Maybe I'm completely wrong. But I bet, because I remember the first time I was trying to catch a Pokemon, I was like, I'll put it to sleep. And then it hit me. I was like, wait, it's asleep. What's going on here? It proper threw me. And then obviously the Frostbite mechanic is phenomenal. And it's a status that reduces special attack. Makes sense. Why haven't we had it for so long, considering Burn is a thing that also lowers physical attack? So yeah, let's see more to the battle mechanics.
So let's have a look. Sleep Powder doesn't have an agile or... Okay. Maybe they don't have an agile or strong style if they just do.
Maybe not.
Interesting.
I thought it was just for damaging moves. So let's see it mixed up even further.
Yeah. There shouldn't be a reason not to, because the efficacy changes, or your chance to proc, say, paralysis on a Thunderbolt changes whether you're using agile or strong style.
Yeah.
So yeah, I can imagine it working quite well as just an accuracy difference.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. Next one, open world areas. This one I think will be the most controversial, because Legends Arceus wasn't true open world. It was 5 mini open worlds that you got to explore. And then Scarlet and Violet came out and went, no, you can do the entirety of the Paldea region. Now, I'm not saying that the Paldean version is the wrong way. I think the issue with the Paldea is it was poorly done.
Yes. Okay.
I know the open world was poorly done. Okay. But saying all that, if that's the quality that we should expect, then I would rather see us have smaller areas, but a few of them in Legends Z to A. I.e., this is the map of the area, but there's a few hot points that you can go to where, it's all bustling, it's all activity, blah, blah, blah. And a couple of reasons. One, it feels a lot more manageable, because instead of having an entire world, it's like, okay, where do I go? It can help to direct where you need to go of, okay, we recommend you go to this area first because it's the lowest level, but it also helps with progression. But also it makes the game more bite size. So have you played Final Fantasy VII Rebirth by any chance?
No.
So they do this, even though, so they moved away from open world and they went, okay, there's 7 different areas you can go to. There's loads of things you can do in those areas. So it feels quite nice of, okay, I'm going to do 80% of the stuff in here, and now I'm going to move on and progress the story. Whereas Paldea felt very, I can go everywhere, but there's not a lot to do in a lot of the locations.
I think Legends has the benefit of having side quests.
Agreed.
So I think if you explore more of open world in Legends Arceus, you will find more things to do than you found in Paldea. I do, however, agree with the sense of progression. The idea of like, oh, there's this area, and this is kind of the starting area. You get to grips with the world, and it's got the basic Pokemon in it. I'm going to do everything here, and then do the story, and then progress to the next section. And the story progression felt really good in Legends Arceus. I felt as I got stronger and got more... And we've talked about HMs and stuff before and why they were good for it, because it made you go back and explore areas. As you got to, was it not the Coronet Highlands?
Pokedex rank. Oh,
no,
okay.
Sorry. What was when you got Basculegion, you could go back to the first area and suddenly more of it is opened up to you. And you can do more missions there that you didn't have before. Now, sure, if you could just walk across all of Legends Arceus in one go, would it be fine? Would it be worse? I honestly don't know. I don't have an answer for it because I've not experienced that version of it. I liked what I got. I liked the way it was presented, and I enjoyed the experience I had with it more than I liked what I got with Pokemon's open world and Scarlet and Violet and how that was presented. And the experience I had with it. So I don't know. I don't know if I need to be able to go to, because we've talked about, are there going to be 5 different areas within Z2A around Lumio City that you're going to have to go to and build up in and get things underway. Do I need to do those in any order? Would it be better if they were just done in the order that was better? Because, levels are all going to be the way they are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not being funny, but if you ran across an alpha early on in your playthrough of Legends Arceus, you know that levels being higher means something a little bit more in a Legends game.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But in that same way, they could easily make it open world and just put those roadblocks in there of like, no, there's just an alpha Pokemon that'll mess you up.
Yeah. Yeah. There are, I think the crux of this argument is 2 things. One is how open is too open, i.e. you need to fill that space in with something.
Mm-hmm.
If a Game Freak can do that, I'm okay with an open world. And the second thing that they need to think about is, okay, how do we make it so that there is some level of progression through the open world? Which, again, Scarlet and Violet, I don't think did very well, because while it was all well and good of you can go everywhere, you couldn't really do everything at the start of the game, because unfortunately, you could go to the last gym first, but in all likelihood, you're going to get absolutely bodied by them. So I think if they can fix those 2 issues, I'm okay with them going full open world. But I feel like the way Legends Arceus did it fixes those 2 problems a lot easier.
Yeah.
And
because it never felt like there wasn't something to explore in Legends Arceus.
Agreed, yes.
I think every area I went to was big enough for the time I spent there, if that makes sense. And because because I had time to spend there, I had things to do there that were story related and stuff. I had a reason to actually explore it rather than just go, oh, okay, this is more grassland. Okay, I'm going to go through here. Mm-hmm. Oh, okay, I'm now at the mountain a bit. Okay, I'm going to go through here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm coming down on the side of, Legends Z2A, don't go full open world. Go. And you know what? Thinking about it, how can they go open world? Because they've said you can only explore Lumio City. And the problem with then going full open world is, okay, you've got to put the gameplay barrier somewhere. And Paldea was dead easy because, well, it's an island. So the gameplay barrier is, well, it's the ocean. If you go out into the ocean, at some point you have to turn back. It's a lot harder to do that when it's, oh, you're in the city. So what? Are they just going to have a big circular barrier around
it's
where
not
it's the
safe
outskirts?
to go beyond this point, master of the region.
Exactly. Exactly. Which is, you know what? I'm doubling down here. Give me the Legends Arceus style of 5 areas. I'm just plucking a number out of my hat. 5 areas, and they're the areas that you can go to, and they are smaller mini open worlds.
That being said, though,
yes.
put more people in it. Put more people doing things within those areas.
Yeah, agreed. Yes, it needs to. And both games were guilty of this, but I feel like Scarlet and Violet were more guilty of, like, not just people, but things happening, going on. Make those areas look like they are lived in, and it isn't just a game that has been, built, and you've just kind of, thrown things in here and there. What I'm getting at is we should feel like we've been dropped into a region that is alive, and Jubilife Village did that. Am I convinced all of the areas outside of that did that? No, there was bits and pieces. But Scarlet and Violet felt very much like, you'd been dropped into a region and the region had started the day before. Like, there wasn't that kind of, oh no, this is Paldea and this is our life. This is everything that we've done over the past, centuries, and this is the history, and you can see that in the various areas that you visit. There was none of that, unfortunately. So give us, whichever one Game Freak does, they just need to make it feel alive.
Silly little things like Paldea had a bunch of different cities that never interacted with each other. You never saw any traders on routes.
Yeah. It's so weird. It's so strange. That's why I just feel like, okay, there's an open world, which is the map that they've created, which is all green, and then they've gone, right, city there, city there, city there, city there, without any thought about the interconnectivity of those. Again, something that was avoided in Pokemon Legends Arceus, because there wasn't really anything, because of the time period, there wouldn't be roads. And because there was Jubilife Village and then a couple of other places, but it existed at a time where, well, if you needed to go up to the mountain to the temple, you would just have to hike up there. So it worked. So again, something that they need to avoid in Legends ZA is, okay, whichever way they do it, maybe that's part of the building mechanic of, okay, you've got an area over here, an area over here. One of the side missions is about creating that trade route. Okay, bring us, we need some Pokemon to pull the carts. We need some Pokemon to transport the people. Maybe that's one of the things that you do to build on that and implement a story and lore mechanic to further the progression of the game.
Yep.
Okay.
Let's
move on to the next. Go on.
I was going to say, that kind of brings us nicely on to, not the next one in our list, but on to upgrading Jubilife Village.
Okay, yeah, let's do that there then, yeah.
Because
so what are your thoughts then?
Yeah, so in Legends Arceus, you were able to upgrade Jubilife Village. You were able to sort of provide Pokemon to, I think, water the ground better, turn the ground over better. That allowed you to get berries and grow specific Pokeball, what are they called? The
acorns. Were they?
Apricorns.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So you were able to do that. You were also able to just influence people around the town, and you'd see that influence stick about, which was nice. I think with Legends Z2A, the way they've pitched it, this has got to be some level of like city building game, right?
Got to be.
We have to be part of the redevelopment plan.
Yeah.
And we have to go out and catch Pokemon or stop Pokemon interfering with the redevelopment. But I think, yeah, more importantly, we need to go out and catch Pokemon to aid with that redevelopment. And I think it's got to have some level of like, what makes a city different from a town, okay, is the industry, really. So if we're going to be building a city, well, now I don't want to just be planting acorns to have, planting apricorns to grab 50 every time I come back and I'll make Pokeballs out of them. No, we want to build the watermill. So the watermill does all this automatically. I want to automate this system and use Pokemon in order to build all this automation. City builder. Give me a proper city builder, please.
Yeah, yeah. And like, I think that is something that we both liked about Pal World, was that, okay, I don't want to do all the crafting because the crafting after a little bit gets a little bit, okay, why am I still having to go out and get all these items to craft Pokeballs that, like, I'm in the 5th region by this point. That shouldn't be the game mechanic I'm having to build on now. You should have built on it. So yes, automation, progression. So it is a case of, okay, you've got someone that goes, oh, okay, this is fantastic. This is the area that we've got for building a couple of, this is the area of Lumiere City, and we're going to build some buildings here. We need certain Pokemon. Okay, right, I'll bring in a couple of fighting type Pokemon, but it's the early game because I've only got to the 1st region. Oh, that's great. Therefore, with these Pokemon, you will get the tier 1 rewards rewarded every hour of gameplay, for example. And then as you progress through the game, you go back and you go, well, actually, I've got stronger Pokemon. I've got evolved Pokemon. Okay, that's fantastic. Let's hand over them. Great. You now not only get the rank 1 rewards every hour, you now get the rank 2 rewards every hour. And it rewards that gameplay of improving the city. And then from that, okay, you no longer need to do those early game, busy quests of, okay, you need to get so many apricorns, you need to get so many stones or whatever it is. It's that build up of progression so that by the end of the game, well, I don't need to farm for potions. I don't need to farm for Pokeballs because I'm now getting them as part of the city infrastructure. And then you can build on that by, you could have certain Pokemon that are better at different things. So, okay, great, you've got the farmland that gives you certain crafting materials, but then that's next to an area where they, do baking goods with fire Pokemon. Therefore, the berries that you had are now, charred berries or whatever it is. Therefore, they now restore more HP or, whatever mechanic they want to implement. Like, it has to feel like we are having an impact on Lumiere City improving, but there needs to be a reward for doing that.
Yeah, and it's so Pokemon it hurts. We have always seen, oh yeah, we use Onyx for mining because they help dig tunnels. We use Machoke for construction. We use a Magcargo or a Slugma to heat our home because it just radiates heat. These are the kind of things that it's like, okay, don't just say it.
Yeah.
Let me play it.
Yeah. Let me live it. Like, there's so much lore in Pokemon, and it feels like unless you are willing to watch the anime, you don't see it implemented in a real way. And again, this goes back to one of my issues with Scarlet and Violet of it feel like it was lived in yesterday. I'm sorry, but in a Pokemon world, cities, villages, towns, infrastructure would be nothing like we have here in the real world. It wouldn't, because we would have grown up next to Pokemon and we would have utilized them in a certain way. So give us that.
Yeah.
It's not. Yeah, and
there's not a lot more to say on that. Just give it.
No. Yeah, give it, please. The next one is Hisuian variants and new evolutions of old Pokemon. This is something that will come up in every Pokemon game, but I guess what can we do? Okay. Did Legends Arceus do anything differently? And if so, how could we improve on it?
Starters, final evolutions of the starters changed.
Yes.
That's something we need to see again.
Yep. So you like that?
I would kind of like to see it maybe from the second Evo.
Agreed, yes.
Rather than just the final evolution.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it felt weird actually thinking about it, because it doesn't feel... I get that it's like stage 1, stage 2, and then it splits quite differently, but it feels like that is too late to have that split. Surely it should have been further on the evolution, because those Pokemon at baby form, at the first stage form, they're already interacting with this environment and stuff, so it feels like that evolution should have parted sooner.
Yeah. So that's maybe the one big change I'd make. I don't know why Hisuian Pokemon really stood out to me as all being very strong. Maybe it's because it was such a limited pool.
And I think it was because some of them were noble Pokemon. So Electrode, we had Arcanine, We had Cleavor. So that's 3. I know Cleavor's not Gen 1, but it's an evolution of a Gen 1 Pokemon. So maybe that's why
the rest of them are all ride Pokemon as well. Basculegion, Ursaluna, Sneasler.
Yes.
The Stantler evolution.
So that's why they stand out, because unlike Scarlet and Violet, they were baked into the progression of the game. Of like you said, the HM side of things, of when you hit a certain point, well, hey, here's an evolution of a Pokemon that you might not have loved. Like, let's be honest with you, Stantler. How many people would say, oh, I want to ride a Stantler? No one. It's got an evolution. Okay, that evolution looks pretty cool. It's baked into the story. Suddenly, Weirdeer is, looked on favorably. I think.
I wouldn't say it's a fan favorite, but I definitely don't think there'd be anybody who say, no, I hate it.
Yeah. If you're going to bring us new Pokemon and evolutions of old Pokemon, well, then implement it in some way. And maybe this is how you tie it into the upgrading Jubilife Village.
Weirdly enough... Sorry.
Go on.
I was going to say, you've just made me realize, I was thinking through all the Hisuian Pokemon, like, what ones don't I like? Overquill? I don't know, I'm not a big fan of Overquill. But it doesn't tick any of the boxes that you just pointed out. It's not a noble Pokemon. It's not story related. It only shows up once in a cave right at the very end.
Yeah.
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah, like if you're going to implement the new versions of old Pokemon, I don't want it implemented in a way that Scarlet and Violet did of, okay, right, I'm going to evolve this Pokemon, it's going to go in the box, and I'm never going to use it again. Like, and this is why I actually think that Pokemon should reduce the amount of new Pokemon they introduced in the new generation. Give us a smaller pool of new Pokemon, but implement them in a way that makes you use them more, makes it so that you want to keep them around. And I think, to tie this back in, maybe that's how you do it with not Jubilife Village, with Lumio City. Of, there are certain Pokemon that are better for each of the roles in building that city, and maybe some of them are the new evolutions of old Pokemon. So not only then is it a case of, okay, I've now got an evolved version of a Kalos version, Colossian version of Machamp, and okay, there's not enough space in my party, but I know it's over there in the city, doing something. Like, it's again tying that back into, it make us care about the development of Lumio City. How do you do that? Well, my Pokemon that I caught, that I put love into, is actually helping to build that up and do it up.
Yeah.
That's one of the ways you do it. Yeah.
Random side thought. Which Voltorb do you think we'll have?
You think we're getting another Voltorb? Or...
Well, I think because Lumios, it's not in Lumio City, but it is Kalos, has the Pokeball factory. So they are probably at the forefront of automating Pokeball creation. And it'd be interesting to see Wild Voltorb being Hisuian Voltorb. And then Voltorb more around where the Pokeball factory is going to be changing into modern Voltorb.
I like that. I like that a lot. And it again ties in, I think, with my point of this world shouldn't be like the world we're in because of the Pokemon. And that is one way that you tie in the ever-changing lore of Pokemon and forms. I love that idea. And I think the other thing that actually really annoys me a little bit about Voltorb is there's certain Pokemon that we get different variants of. So one of the ones is what is he? What's the butterfly Pokemon that has loads of different variants?
Vivian.
Yeah. Why? Like, surely Voltorb is a better version of that because there are so many Pokeballs in every generation. It's like, oh no, that Voltorb is available in these different patterns.
Yeah, that would be very cool.
Ties in with like, oh, it's around the Pokeball sense, and the way that you do it is literally, okay, going back to what I mentioned earlier about, every hour you get the rank rewards, and maybe one of the areas is, it's a Pokeball factory. And then as you build up that Pokeball factory and it goes, oh no, now we're producing Great Ball. then surely the Voltorbs in the area would change to match that because they see the output of the Great Balls, and then you can do Ultra Balls. And I know we're probably not going to get this because unfortunately we have now had a form variant of Voltorb and Electrode, and I can't recall off the top of my head any Pokemon that have had more than one family form evolution or difference. I can't think of any off the top of my head.
Dugtrio's the closest, but it didn't actually get a third form. It got Wugtrio instead.
Yeah, which is a what was it called? It's a Divergent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want those back?
No, I don't want Divergent forms back. They added nothing to me, and I think it just helped to confuse the player base of, wait, so it's not Diglett?
Yeah, and especially when that's what the Pokedex entry says as well. It's like, it's not Diglett, by the way. It's like that. So it's not a Pokemon in its own right.
Yes,
the only thing the encyclopedia of Pokemon tells me about this is that it's not another Pokemon. It has no right to be here.
Yeah, agreed. Like, the only way I could see that them changing that to make me go, oh, I actually care about this, and maybe I'm wrong here, but surely Diglett and Wiglet at some point in the ancient past have a common ancestor, right? Is that how it works? Or is it just just that these two Pokemon have just naturally evolved in similar circumstances and therefore have
adapted to their environments in similar ways?
That just makes it even. You know what? No, I don't want Divergent Evolution. It didn't add anything. It wasn't interesting.
It's a cool thing that happens in real life, but
yeah,
Pokemon doesn't have to perfectly reflect real life.
Exactly. You know what? No, I'd give me more variants. Give me more new evolutions of old Pokemon. Don't give me although we can't even blame Legends Arceus for this because they didn't come up with No. Pokemon Legends is okay. This is why Pokemon Legends is the best game ever. Best Pokemon game ever. And the other thing that you touched on earlier, items for evolutions. You know what? I'm good with that. That's all Legends ZA has to do. Along with other things. Like with new Pokemon.
How do you mean?
Like, just give me more variants, new evolutions of older Pokemon. Give me the items to evolve them and just implement them in a way that is good to the progression and story of the game.
Sorry, I was confused what you meant by items to evolve them.
Oh, yeah, I was just lumping that in with new evolutions of old Pokemon.
Right, okay.
Because cables, all that kind of, metal coat, you can just whack it on, it does it.
Right, scene.
I'm happy with that. Yep. Next one that we... Go on. Is there something else you want to add to that one?
I'm just looking at the same list you are.
Noble Pokemon. So I know we're saying this in Noble Pokemon. I'm trying to think about what also we've had. We've had Noble Pokemon. Should we lump Alpha Pokemon in with that?
Sure.
I feel like
no, because the Noble Pokemon are very specifically the boss fights.
Mm-hmm.
And the closest thing we've had in other games are Sun and Moon, we had the Totems. And Scarlet and Violet, we had the Titans. Yes. Obviously, there are different gameplay mechanics because in Legends Arceus, you've got to run for your life.
Yeah.
Which was very different. Which one of those do you think was implemented the best?
I think Legends Arceus was the best, then the Totem Pokemon, then the Titan Pokemon.
Yeah. And I think the Totem Pokemon stand above Titan Pokemon because they got a significant boost in their stats. They could call in help.
Oh, yes.
And it always felt like you were on the back foot.
Yes.
Whereas the Titan Pokemon, you always had help. They didn't seem any stronger than a normal wild Pokemon. They just had more health.
More HP, yeah.
And that was kind of it.
Yep.
Yeah, sure, you had the two fights back to back, but you could heal in between them. Really wasn't that big of a deal.
Yep, and I will argue that the Giratina battle did that better in Legends Arceus. I've won. Oh hell, it's got another form. Like,
that is still the best. That's still the best fight in Pokemon. Still the best fight in Pokemon.
I want to go back and do that again at some point, because I just remember getting to the point I was like, okay, I've beat the game. Oh no, my Pokemon are on their last legs, and I now have to battle a fully healed, probably boosted Giratina again. So noble Pokemon. So I think the thing that makes this sets this out is the fact that the mechanics of noble Pokemon, in terms of you're having to run around, throw the bombs at them, avoid their attacks, try to get them in a vulnerable state so you can throw out a Pokemon to battle them. So that's something that is only been in Legends Arceus so far. I would love to see that come back in Legends Z to A, but I would like to see them build on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think while the bombs while I enjoyed the bombs for what it was, I must admit that by the fifth one, I would have expected to see some kind of progression in Legends Arceus that we didn't get, outside of, the Pokemon just use different attacks. Well, the gameplay mechanics is exactly the same. So what I would like to see in Legends Z to A is, okay, the noble Pokemon, or whatever variety name they want to give them, are too strong. Therefore, you can't send out your Pokemon to battle them, but the Pokemon need to play a role in that battle, in terms of maybe distracting, maybe in terms of protecting you, maybe in terms of helping you to move around the battlefield more quickly. So I'm imagining a scenario where you rock up, there's a noble Pokemon, this Pokemon's really fast, and while, yes, you can avoid the attacks by dodging and rolling, it's going to be a lot easier if you've got a ride Pokemon that you can jump on, because that Pokemon is quicker than you can run, and therefore more likely to avoid the attacks. Again, bringing those Pokemon into the story and helping you build those bonds with those Pokemon.
See, when I think of the noble Pokemon fights, it reminds me a lot of Monster Hunter.
Okay.
So there's certain things I'd like to see, like being able to lure them into traps. So, you can run around and throw bombs at them all you like, but maybe one of them is just really fast. Maybe one of these Pokemon is just really fast and you cannot get away from it long enough. If you start throwing bombs at it, it will just catch up to you. Well, now you've got to go around and lay traps around. So you've got to throw your Pokemon out and set up traps along the side, and then try and lure it into those, and then you can throw the bombs at it. Or you set up some form of like smoke bombs so it confuses it, and then during that time you can throw the bombs. Just a little bit more than dodge and throw, dodge and throw, dodge and throw.
Yeah.
Which was fun, but as you say, got very samey towards the end. Yeah. I think the only fight I really had difficulty with was the Arcanine one, and that's because I didn't realize that when it's charging its big 5 fireball move, you need to just hit it.
Yeah.
So I need you to build on that. I need you to give me some form of trap, some form of like setup, as it were. I really like this idea that, okay, this Pokemon's coming around this area and it keeps trashing things. Whilst it's away, let's set up the area. You set it up however you want. Then it shows up. Okay, now go. Because then again, that gives you this idea of, this is much stronger than you and you are in real danger.
Yeah.
You need to take the Batman approach and have prep time.
Yeah. That's how you build on that. You actually go out into the wild and you don't battle it. You don't try and catch it, because the story goes, no, you physically can't battle this Pokemon. It's too strong at this point. That doesn't stop you researching.
Yes.
Doesn't stop you looking at it in the wild. How does it interact? What do you notice? Oh, every now and again you notice that it goes and eats a certain type of berry. Okay, that's fantastic. You now know that if you bring those berries, you can set down, like you say, traps, lures, whatever it might be, that creates an opening. That's how you that's how you build on what you just said, but that's how you build on the Legends Arceus mechanic, which again felt fine, but it needs improving for Z to A.
Yeah.
Because every sequel should build on what came before, and it feels like there was a good starting point with Legends Arceus. It just needs it can't just do the same.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
let me build a cake. And I don't know why it's always cakes, but like you've already got cakes in Legends. So you build a cake that is this Pokemon's favorite food, and then you put something in it that basically causes paralysis.
Laxatives. Oh, okay.
Yeah. That works too, I guess. I was going to say some kind of like drowsiness or causes paralysis or something.
Yes, I like that a lot. That's actually a really good idea. Honestly, I would love to be able to just pitch to Game Freak for the day.
Yep.
I'd love that. That'd be so good. Right. Let's move on to the next one, which is crafting items. So this is something that was implemented in Legends Arceus of you wander around the region, there are trees, there are rocks, there are multiple items that you can pick up on the ground, and they allow you to craft the various items that you can use in helping you to catch or take care of your Pokemon. We then got something that was, I think, nerfed in Scarlet and Violet, which was the TM crafting of you knock out so many Pokemon, you get items, you can then use them to craft TM, which was a much poorer implementation, unfortunately. Now, out of the two, would you prefer Legends Arceus or Scarlet and Violet's
I definitely prefer Legends Arceus. I think the actual crafting is good fun. I think it gives me a reason to catch Pokemon of different types and go and explore. And it lent itself as well to that thing of like, there's always something to do. You weren't just picking up a random item off the ground. You were going to that tree because it's got the right berries. You were going to that rock because it's got the right ore. And I think realistically, it's pretty much there. I'm happy with it. The only thing I'd say, which we've already covered, is automation. By the time I'm in the end game, I don't want to be running around and picking up ores. Sure, I had my route planned out, but it's still 15 minutes out of my day that I don't need to be spending.
Agreed. I think one of the reasons it was implemented so well, now that I'm looking back to Legends Arceus, is the fact that, you're running from A to Z. You see what I did there? From A to B, and along the way, there was a rock, there was a tree. You could literally turn, throw your Pokemon, keep running. Yeah. Turn, throw your Pokemon at the rock, keep running. It was in that, it didn't break up the gameplay. Whereas Scarlet and Violet, to get those items, you need to go to the location. You then need to send out your Pokemon the Let's Go mechanic, which wasn't well implemented. You then need to make sure that you are close enough so your Pokemon doesn't despawn. And you need to just sit there doing nothing while your Pokemon goes and knocks out those Pokemon, which is why it was better implemented in Legends Arceus. And I think, like you said, the only improvements I think are maybe give us more crafting, I guess. So there's more items to unlock. And just automation. Just make it easier by the end of the game to get those items. And I think that's the perfect implementation of that.
Yeah, I'd maybe like to see something, and this is like very much a wish list thing, some kind of like personalization of Pokeballs. If I'm the one making them, then why can't I paint them how I want?
Yeah, which is weird because we got something similar in BDSP of you can customize the Pokeballs, and again, it's one of those weird things where there are so many features in Pokemon games, but for every new one they add in a new generation, they remove several from previous generation. It's strange logic, but you're right. Yeah, maybe that is part of the industry section of Lumio City of what are the benefits. Well, sometimes it is just cosmetic benefits.
Yeah,
nothing wrong with that. But yeah, like you say, yeah, it's another element you could improve with crafting.
Yeah, I think if you're going to build Lumio City, and this is a random off-topic thing, if we both max out our city, they should realistically look the same. But I think halfway through our games, they will look vastly different.
Yes.
Because I will have focused on one more industry than you will have.
Yeah. Oh, I like that a lot, actually, of maybe there's only so much space in Lumio City. So what do you as a player want to prioritize?
Yeah. Yeah, I was more a thing of like you upgrade things. So I've upgraded the farm section whereas you've gone, no, I've upgraded the Pokeball section.
Okay.
So we both got the same length of the way through the game, but we've upgraded the town down different paths. But by eventually, we'll have been able to upgrade everything. You're right. There is also the option of like, well, no, there's only so much space. I don't know if they do that. I feel like Pokemon wants this idea of like, no, you can do everything.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see this Lumio City upgrade and whether or not at the end of the game every player's Lumio City is the same, which I think is the wrong way to go about it.
It'll be populated by different Pokemon.
Will it?
Well, yeah. If you chose a Machoke to put in your construction district, whereas mine is Conkeldurr. I don't know.
Yes, I get what you mean. But from a zoomed out, if say every player's game and zoom out, is it going to be the same? I don't want that.
It's Lumio City. At the end of it, you built Lumio City, no?
Yeah, yes, true. But there are, I think, some parts of what kind of shops do you want? Do you want more coffee shops? Do you want more fast food restaurants? Like little things like that where there are little differences that you can make where, it is Lumio City, but there is your style on it.
Yeah.
I think I'd be happy with that because, again, it allows you to tie in with what comes back to why should we care about the Lumio City rebuild project? Because I got a lot of say in it.
Yeah,
and
makes
that
sense.
say gets shown in the game. The next one, Mount Pokemon. So, Mount Pokemon were implemented in Legends Arceus. There were 5 in total.
Yes.
Weirdeer, Ursaluna, Braviary,
Sneasler, Braviary, and Basculegion.
What was the 5th one? Basculegion.
All of them were good, except for Ursaluna, which kind of sucked.
Ursaluna should have been rolled in with one of the other ones.
Yeah.
I think.
I think it's... I like the idea of finding items on the ground. I think it moved far too slow.
Agreed.
Which just meant I never used it.
Agreed. And I think that the way... I'll cover this bit first. So, again, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, there is something similar. So there's a Chocobo. You ride around on the Chocobo, and the Chocobo can do exactly what Ursaluna does of, there's a hidden item somewhere. Now, the great thing about Final Fantasy VII is that as you are riding around, it pops up with there's something in the nearby region. All they need to do in Legends Arceus was to have it so that it doesn't matter which Pokemon you are riding on. There's something in the area. Okay, now I swap to Ursaluna. That's how they should have done it. So there are certain points where it's like, so then it narrows down the scope of, instead of having to ride Ursaluna everywhere, you just, every now and again when it pops up, you know to switch to Ursaluna. My other point on Mount Pokemon is that we got something similar in Scarlet and Violet, which was Miraidon or Koraidon that did everything. Which of the two did you prefer and why?
It's so difficult to say. It's actually a really hard question.
Okay.
I think probably Miraidon or Koraidon because it was all in one. However,
okay.
It felt less impactful because it was just the one Pokemon that I had from the very beginning.
Yes.
Whereas I liked being able to see, okay, now I'm riding Weirdeer. Okay, now I'm riding Basculegion. Okay, now I'm up in the air and Braviary. I liked sitting in the little basket on the back of Sneasler. I thought it was really fun.
Yeah. Yes, with his little eyes poking out of the basket. Love that.
It's hard to compare the two because Miraidon and Koraidon couldn't fly until the end of the game, until post-game.
So my issue with Miraidon and Koraidon is that you have to... Game Freak would have to create a Pokemon that can do all those different forms of... Okay, it needs to be a Pokemon that can fly somehow, but it can also swim somehow. It can also move around somehow. Like, it limits you creativity. You know, it kind of forces you to create a Pokemon that can do everything, and sometimes it doesn't feel right. So, for example, I don't think even Miraidon or Koraidon have a great fly. What's the word I'm looking for? Like they suddenly
model,
just
really
ping out. Yeah. Like it just doesn't work. In my opinion. Whereas Pokemon Legends Arceus didn't have that issue because it was like, no, this is the Pokemon used for swimming, and it's obviously a aquatic Pokemon. Here's the Pokemon used for flying, and it's obviously in its design, the wings actually look really well. One thing that didn't work well in Legends Arceus, though, is the fact you've got 5 mounts, and whichever mount you're on, you can only go left or right.
You can only switch between 2 of them, yeah. Now, to be fair, it did have automatic switching. Like, if you jumped off a cliff on Weirdeer, you could press one button and swap to Braviary. If you jumped into the ocean, it immediately swapped to Basculegion. Did have that in there. And to be fair, those were the only 3 you really used. Maybe you used Sneasler. But again, if you flew into a wall or rode into a wall, it'd be like press A to switch to Sneasler. So it did have that one button change, and maybe that's another reason why I never used Ursaluna, is because it never had that one button change to Ursaluna.
No, it didn't actually. Yes.
So was it as seamless as Miraidon and Koraidon? No. But yeah, I think, as you say, it just felt better.
Yeah, I personally think that I would prefer to see the Legends Arceus style come back, because it again rewards that progression of, okay, as you are progressing in the game, you unlock the mount Pokemon. I think while it was nice to have Miraidon and Koraidon early game, I wouldn't want to see that every Pokemon game. As soon as you start up, oh, here's your rad Pokemon for the game. I want to see that progression. I think what I would like to see, and I know this is a wishful thinking, because it's not going to happen, of you've got your mount Pokemon, but towards the end of the game, you can swap those mount Pokemon in and out. So if you've got a Pokemon that you can ride on the back of, such as Arcanine, you can just ping that in.
That was going to be my suggestion. I know that's
wishful thinking.
That was going to be my suggestion. Instead of getting a mount Pokemon, you unlock the ability to build a saddle.
Yes.
So you can build a swimming saddle, you can build a riding saddle, you can buy a flight saddle, so that you can then build it for whatever Pokemon you already own. And again, I've spoken to people about this, and they're like, "Oh, but then my party would be full of a bunch of people who you only have for the HMs." It's fine. We just put them in the box, and we have them on that same row that we have all the noble Pokemon. You blow your little whistle, and they just appear.
Yeah.
You don't need logic. It's fine.
Yeah, it's a game. Doesn't, it's fine. I think you've mentioned before, you almost have 2 teams. You have this is your gameplay team for battling, and this is your ride team. And sometimes those Pokemon might be on both teams, which is fine. But for example, that you might have, your favorite Pokemon to ride on might be Lapras. But you don't want to use Lapras in your team. That's fine. But if you want it as a ride Pokemon, you still have it as a ride Pokemon. It's absolutely fine. That's the way that I feel like you implement that. Are they going to do that for mount Pokemon? Probably not. There's too many.
It'd be really cool if they did, though, because it would allow them to bring back a lot of stuff that came in Sun and Moon. So, for instance, you use a Rhyhorn, and, well, now we can break rocks. Not only is it a ride Pokemon, but you can break rocks with it.
Yeah.
Some bird Pokemon are faster than others, whereas, maybe Dodrio's the fastest land animal.
Yeah.
Gyarados looks really cool in the water. Lapras gets attacked less. I don't know. You can have all these different variants if you really wanted to implement it. But I think you're looking at a much smaller Pokedex if you start going down that route.
Agreed. And I'm thinking about, if this was a Zelda game, for example, I'm thinking like Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was great for having all these little, I wonder what if I did this, and then it would have some kind of neat animation or something play out that you just, the developer rewarded the player for being inquisitive. So I can imagine that happening in Pokemon of, hold on, I've got a flying Pokemon. Can I just send out a Spearow, and the custom animation of Spearow is Spearow really flapping, and it's got a tear coming off it because it's just no, this isn't happening, but it works in the gameplay logic. But again, the problem with that is that are you really going to create custom animations for all these various different Pokemon? Probably not.
We have a bunch. We have a bunch now that the what's the walk around system in Scarlet and Violet called?
Let's Go.
Yes, but the version where you can become the Pokemon.
Oh, synchronization or something.
Yeah, the synchro system. Now that that's out and about, people have found that actually there's a lot of animation in these Pokemon that nobody had seen before.
Oh, okay.
So like Blastoise tucks its legs away and blasts water jets out of its shell to move forward in the water.
Oh, I've seen that, yeah.
So you have all these animations. It could be done. Whether it will or not is a different matter.
Yeah,
but it could be done.
I think it could be done. And I think the way that you do that is literally just go, okay, there's 400 Pokemon in this game, but realistically, some of them, like Pidgey, it's too small. Therefore, it's not eligible to be a flying Pokemon. And that's the way you do it, is you kind of go, yes, you can have every Pokemon be there is a Pokemon in every evolution line that fits at least one of the HMs. You might not like the fact that you can't use your Pidgey as a flyer, but from a real world perspective, it makes sense. It just can't lift your weight.
Yeah.
That's how you do it. The final one on this list, which I completely forgot this was at the bottom of the list, so I started ranting about Alpha Pokemon earlier on. Alpha Pokemon. So, this Alpha Pokemon are similar in some ways to Totem Pokemon in terms of, do they get a boost, actually? Or are they just more... they're just Alpha a higher Pokemon level, aren't they?
Alpha Pokemon were more likely to have higher EV spreads, effectively, because they changed out EVs and IVs, and it was just you broke down dust and gave it to your Pokemon and boosted them up that way. Noble Titan, no. Alpha Pokemon were more likely to have points already in those, so they were stronger in that way.
Okay, right.
But also, they were bigger and their eyes glowed red. It was cool.
And they were aggressive.
Yeah, it was cool.
I remember that Rapidash in the first area of... Oh, okay. Yeah, I'm completely underleveled for this. It felt natural, whereas Scarlet and Violet felt very much I'm okay in this region. No, I'm not okay in this region. Oh, it's too late. Whereas Legends Arceus made it clear which were the Pokemon that you should avoid.
And then you'd still tempt fate anyway and then go, oh, mistakes were made. Run.
Yep. That Snorlax that was blocking the route to I was like, I think I can get him. Like, throw a couple of berries, throw a ball. No, it's not stayed in. Right, I better backtrack and then come back. There was a lot of fun to be had with the Alpha Pokemon. And again, it rewards that. It rewards the Pokemon players that want a bit more of a challenge in their games.
Yes.
Of, I'm going to try and take this Pokemon on at an earlier level than I should, opposed to Scarlet and Violet, where it's like, oh yeah, you can take this on an earlier level, but it's tied to progression, which means that at some point you need to beat it, whereas the Alpha Pokemon weren't tied to progression. It was, okay, if you want to get to the second region, yeah, you could try and get the Alphas, but you don't need the Alphas at this stage. You can come back at a later. Again, tying it with that progression, it made it feel more rewarding when eventually you could come back and then could take on those Alpha Pokemon. Either by... Go on.
It also felt like little mini-bosses around the map.
Yes.
As you say, it was something that you came up to early on and went, I can't handle that, and then came back later and went, I'm going to give it a good goddamn go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yes, Alpha Pokemon were absolutely fantastic. Really enjoyed them. I guess, how would you see this implemented or improved in Legends ZA? Can it be?
I'm good. I think they're fine.
Yeah,
I would like to see them act more as either like a protector of those around them, which again brings it back to that Pokemon really need to feel like Pokemon in the wild for me. I like to see them as no, I'm the alpha, therefore I oversee all of these. Therefore, if you attack one of them, I'm the one coming for you.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'd also like to see alphas fight. I don't think you should ever see two alphas in the same area, which means if you do a mass outbreak and you get two alphas show up and they start going at each other because you can't have two alphas, yeah, that's how you improve it. I don't think the alphas themselves need to be better. I just think they need to be implemented into better Pokemon interactions in the wild.
I think the only two ways you could change up the system, I don't want to use the word improve because I don't know if these are improvements, is the first one is a case of, piggybacking on what you've said about, that Rapidash shouldn't be the only Pokemon that evolution line. It should be surrounded by a couple of Ponyta because, it's the alpha, it rules the roost. So it should be a case of, okay, the player has one of two options here. Either they try to avoid the Ponyta and get sneak attack on the Rapidash by, throwing it at the back, or the flip side of, okay, just to make sure I haven't got to deal with an angry Rapidash and a load of Ponyta, I slowly make my way and take out the other Ponyta. But what happens then? Well, the Rapidash, like they if it spots you at any point, it will then attack you. But if you can catch all the Ponyta, maybe there's a benefit. Maybe it's, the Rapidash is angry, therefore it has better EV spreads because it's tied that anger with a stat boost.
There was an enraged mechanic, wasn't there?
Ooh,
I remember there was something. It's like if you did something, the Pokemon would become enraged and it would get a little bit of a stat boost.
Oh, look that up because I can't remember that, but it sounds familiar in a really weird way.
Yeah, keep talking.
Yeah, and I'm trying to remember now. What was the other second? There was another thing I was going to say. I wouldn't mind seeing implemented. That was it. Alpha Pokemon, while they should be mini bosses, they shouldn't be predestined. So what I mean by that is that if you go to an area, let's say there's, go to an area, there's 10 Shinx there. Let's say the more you take down those Shinx, the higher chance that an Alpha Luxray will spawn. Or the flip side of, let's say there's 10 Shinx, you capture 9, and one of them manages to leg it out. If you then come back at a later stage, that Shinx has evolved and therefore is now an alpha. So it's that there isn't just, okay, you're playing the game, there's potentially 20 alphas. What I want to see is your actions impact on the odds of alpha spawning.
Yeah, I can see that. Don't know how they'd implement it. It reminds me of, did you ever play like Shadow of Mordor?
The Nemesis system.
Oh,
yeah.
It was kind of what that reminded me of. I can't see Pokemon implementing something like that, but would be very cool to add to the wish list.
Yes, agreed. I think you could just do it as simple as, Pokemon in some of the games have had it where it tells you how many you have caught of a species. Therefore, the more of them you catch, the higher the odds that an alpha will spawn in where the Shinx are predestined to spawn, for example.
Mm-hmm. That kind of is the case, because if you've maxed out a Pokedex entry, you're more likely to find alphas and outbreaks of those Pokemon.
Oh, okay.
So it's not quite set up the way you're saying it, but that is a thing that happens.
Yeah. Okay. So did you find anything on
yes,
Pokemon getting it?
So there was, you could enrage a Pokemon and you weren't able to catch them if they were enraged. I don't know if it gave them a stat boost, but
you had to subdue them, didn't you? So that's when the mud balls would come into play.
Enraged, the Pokemon is so furious that its attack is boosted 1 level each time it takes damage.
Each time it takes damage? Oh, wow. Okay.
There you go.
Wow. I love that. This whole conversation has made me again realize just how good Legends Arceus was.
It really was.
And actually, it feels like a labor of love from the team of, okay, what can we do different? What can we do to change this formula up? And they did that with Legends Arceus.
Yeah, I said it at the time, and I stick to it now. It felt like a game that somebody wanted to make. Yeah. Not a developer that was forced on a cycle of, no, you got to make Gen 10, Gen 11, whatever it is. It is no, we've got an idea. Let us run with it. And
talking through this has made me really excited that we're getting Legends ZA, but also points to a company that is willing to take risks, because Legends Arceus was a risk. I think Legends ZA in some ways is less of a risk because they proved they can do a Legends game, but was Legends Arceus, financially it did do well. Didn't do as well as the mainline games. I think
not
I'm
quite,
remembering,
but it was only a single release, not a dual release.
Exactly, but I think where I'm coming from is, was Legends something that people wanted? And it's always difficult to tell with the sales of the original game. The sequel is the one that you look at because it's, people that didn't like Legends Arceus, are they going to buy Legends ZA? Probably not.
Yeah,
less
I weirdly know a lot of people who went, nah, it's not my Pokemon. And that's fine.
I know a few people.
You're entitled to that opinion. I'm glad that those of us who have gone, this is kind of a direction I'd like to see Pokemon continue, are getting a follow-up.
Agreed. That's the 10. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up this week?
Nope. That seems like a good place to end it.
And that's the show for this week. If you've gotten this far, you're just a top dollar, aren't you? Before we go, we'd really appreciate it if you could leave a review on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're watching on YouTube, then please leave a like and subscribe, as it really helps out our podcast. We're nearly at 200 subscribers, which is amazing. If you've got a comment or a question, you can reach us by leaving a comment on our podcast on YouTube, by emailing goldenrodpod@gmail.com, by leaving it on our Discord channel, by using the hashtag goldenrodpod on Twitter. Conor, where can we find you?
You can find me on my YouTube channel at Captain Fidget, or on Twitter at CapFidget.
I'm Ben. You can find me as Professor Hoenn Gaming on YouTube and Professor Hoenn on Twitter. We'll be back next Friday for another week of Pokemon Podcast Hunt.
See ya!